Four myths about value stream management, today's flow short topic. I'm Joshua Barnes, and once again, I'm joined by Steve Pereira. And this is another interesting topic, right? There's myths, definitely myths around lots of stuff, agile, value stream management. And so there is a blog post that this is based off of, which in a few moments I'll post it in the chat. But to kind of get going with this, the first myth is value stream management is only for DevOps teams.
I mean, this is just an amazing one. And of course, this exists because some folks' first exposure to value stream management was all of these DevOps toolchain companies starting to talk about value stream management. So It's kind of natural to start to think, oh, well, okay, this is the latest and greatest DevOps thing. But, as you dig deeper below the surface of that marketing message, you find out that value stream management has nothing to do with, software as its origin. And, it doesn't come from the digital world at all. And it actually has more to do with, weaving fabric and building cars and manufacturing products, I would say. And, there's a lot of history before DevOps that is really important to really understanding it. So this is a surprising myth, but not surprising when you think about how folks might have first encountered value stream management.
Yeah, and I think where some of the tool vendor companies that have done a really good job with marketing, and they do webinars, and they've got things you can download, and a lot of the messaging is around, use our tools. That's what this approach is all about. We've got this functionality, and yes, using tools that you can get data from, and you can then start taking a look at metrics is beneficial. But yeah, that's not what this is all about. It's also not just about one particular area, right? It's not just DevOps. It's not just the delivery team. It is all about the end-to-end flow. It's all of that, right? I mean, and that's the thing I think that's also really important to bust this myth.
Yeah,
we should have Mythbuster stuff on.
It's tough, I think, as the vendors, because, you really want to motivate people to try something new and take advantage of some new capability that will honestly benefit their business, right? Whether it's easy to do or extremely difficult, and whether it can be narrowly applied or broadly applied to the business. All these things are going to start with a pilot in some specific area, wherever you have momentum and incentive, and urgency. And then, you don't want people to get distracted and be like, oh, value stream management, this seems like it checks all the boxes for our specific use case. And now I'm going to tumble down a rabbit hole and spend 6 months understanding what this is all about. You'll never sell the product, right? I mean, you really, I think, as a vendor, you have a hard time navigating that middle way of motivating people to do something that is beneficial and will help their business, will provide return on investment, and prevent them from being distracted and going right back to the status quo or overwhelmed, right? I mean, you don't want to hit them with too much stuff and have them shy away and say, well, I know what we were doing yesterday, we can do tomorrow, so let's do nothing. And so I think that this is inevitable. It's unfortunate, but it's difficult to ride that line.
Yeah. And one last thought I've got on this is, if you think about an area of that end-to-end flow, like DevOps, and let's say that, yes, you are going to turn on some new tool functionality and you're going to have a higher level of automation, you might just be increasing the speed at delivering something that is of no value that nobody actually wants, right?
Right.
Or yeah, but we released it faster. Yeah. So myth busted Myth number two. I can deploy VSM without changing my organizational structure and funding approaches.
This one I find is a little bit more challenging because, of course, we want the lowest barrier to entry to kind of adopt value stream management. And we want this to meet people where they are. And it's very difficult to, again, navigate that space between, to get the full benefit, you really have to lean in. You have to go all in, and you have to embrace how this is ultimately designed to work, which is end-to-end flow, which is complete reorganization towards customer outcomes and sustainability and continuous delivery of value and feedback to all of those capabilities. And that takes significant investment. It takes commitment. It takes full reorganization if you're really going to do it. But at the same time, there are steps before full reorganization, right? So as much as we say that you can't really say that you have a stream aligned value stream network organization, you can go a long way with testing hypotheses, piloting, rolling this out in areas of the organization that are more, let's say, well poised or positioned or equipped to adopt this. And it doesn't have to be a gigantic Big Bang thing, but that's the implication of it. That's where the true value is in really changing how you do business so that you become more like the fast moving, agile, innovative organizations that are leading the market, that are dominating industry. They are doing this, and they have been doing this, and some of them never stopped from when they were a startup, and that's how they do it. And that's really what it means, I think, is sort of rethinking how you set up an organization, and that takes commitment, investment, and a concerted effort.
Yeah, and a lot of buy-in. In addition to the organizational structure, just sort of the value creation structure of the organization, changing the funding approach, right? And if you're at a big company and you're a publicly traded company, you probably have an annual budget. You probably got an annual event where you've got quantities of work like projects that are up for consideration and then approved, and an allocation for funding has been set aside for the new year, and that's a big undertaking, right? I mean, tremendous potential benefit to moving to something that is more timely and more recurring from a funding perspective, moving to something that's at least like quarterly funding decisions. But you got to get finance involved, you got to get stakeholders and so many people. So it's lots of benefits, like you said. I mean, that's how all this is designed, to get the maximum benefit. But there are things we can be doing along the way that either get us closer and moving in the right direction, or be doing things that we're capturing some data to be able to say, yeah, see, if we were making some of these changes, this is potentially what we'd be getting.
Yeah, this is really, I mean, we could go so deep on this. I didn't even touch on the funding part, but and actually let us know, folks listening, let us know, because I think I would love to follow this up with a series on realities of value stream management. And each one of these could be a short, because these are not short answers. But the funding thing, starting to look at like what makes a startup so fast, so effective, so able to dominate a market in insane amounts of time. And that has everything to do with stream-based funding and these funding models that we know are the better alternative to these gigantic budgeting challenges.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to consider that another myth busted. Myth 3: I have to scrap everything and start from scratch to employ value stream management.
I like this one because you would think that it conflicted with myth number 2, right? What are we talking about? That you have to change everything, and it does imply a large scale change. Wouldn't that mean scrapping everything and starting from scratch, employing VSM? No, actually. And I would say that that is the riskiest and most wasteful and dangerous way that you could implement any kind of change.
Yeah.
The wonderful thing about value stream, and one of the most challenging aspects on the other side of the coin, is that it's not a real thing. It's a logical construct, right? This is a idea of how to organize people into a cohesive end-to-end path to production. And what that means is you can deploy that layer on top of anything, right? It's an abstraction that you can put on top of any number of things, right? You have all these individuals, you have all these processes, you have all this stuff. It's actually underneath the value stream, the tools as well, underneath the value stream. And the value stream is really just how you logically, culturally, and as a business connect those things together into a coherent flow that is as uninterrupted and as productive and effective and value added as possible. And so that means that you can take your existing organization, you can deploy a value stream on top, and you can show with that where the friction is, right? One of the things about value stream mapping so powerful is that you can map your current state no matter how unlike a value stream it is, and just show this is what happens with the current state. The current state is tons of crazy handoffs, things going all over the place, the scenic route to everything. And the value stream as a model, this construct will start to reveal, okay, well, if we were to put these things into a better structure and address these areas where we're going around, we're going out and back in, then all of a sudden you're starting to build out this streamlined end-to-end flow. And that can take as long as you like, as long as you have, as long as you're making progress and you're not overwhelming people, I would say that that's time well spent. You're moving in the right direction. Maybe not fast enough, but I don't think big bang overnight is a viable alternative.
Yeah, and if you had things that are working in the organization, right? I mean, if you're an organization that's not a going concern, where it's like, ooh, well, we might not make it, after another couple of months, you don't want to get rid of that. And as Steve said, you're also looking at things like how long are things just sitting and waiting, right? That's such a big opportunity. And how often do things go forward and backward and forward and backward and then forward and then really far backward, right? Those are the things that we're looking for, and those are some of the initial areas that can be considered from an improvement perspective, because if that improves your flow, again, you might not be making the huge big bang that that everybody thinks we want to make, but you're making progress.
Yeah, I think, it's very important to set a big vision, right? To illustrate what's possible in the most complete way that covers a compelling case, really motivates people like, oh yeah, we want that. That's a vision for the future that we are really excited about. But then the first steps be very small, be very deliberate, and cautious to avoid that risk and the blowback and the need for buy-in and all those things that are the headwinds that we have to face.
Yeah. And think about the big bang approaches we've seen, over the years with just, agile adoptions, right? Where it's like, yep, it's like every new project or every team, it's like you're agile now, right? And just quit doing what you've been doing, and the results haven't been there. Now we're talking about something that, right, is again much beyond just like a delivery team. All right, so our last myth to bust, myth number 4: we can't move forward with VSM because we're not an agile run company.
This one is another one. These are great. Like Marla, original author of this article, kudos to you. These are great. These are really, I think, authentic myths that are, they're hard to bust, I think, for most people internally in their to work through in your mind, because they seem contradictory and they seem really challenging. And those are myths that pervade, right? Myths stick around because they're difficult to disprove. But I think that agility and the origins of value stream management, which is lean, are actually somewhat on opposite ends of a spectrum, right? For agility, what we're trying to optimize for is rate of change, and in the lean world, you want to minimize that to maximize your operational efficiency, to extract maximum value at the very basic level. Of course, lean, the first principle of lean is define value. We're not just minimizing cost, right? We are maximizing opportunity. We are, in fact, making room for creativity. We are transforming waste into opportunity. And, but, in order to succeed with value stream management, you have to be sitting in the middle of that spectrum and understand the value of both sides. And sometimes you're playing more in the agile space, sometimes you're playing more in the traditional kind of lean operational excellence space. But it doesn't require agile at all. You can be deploying value stream management in a project context just as effectively, right? If you're running the same thing, let's say you plan events, maybe you plan the same event every year in the same city at the same venue for the same people. Value stream management will help you optimize that process, right? And do that extremely well. There could be nothing agile about it, aside from the fact that maybe you want to layer in some level of adaptation into that. You want to understand, okay, well, every year is not the same. You've got COVID years, right?
Yeah.
You've got change. And so your operational excellence only goes as far as its first encounter with reality, right? So I think we're all looking for a blend of agility and operational excellence and efficiency and consistency in all these things. And value stream management, to me, allows us to operate in that middle space where we can move and we can shift as demand and opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, and I think as you've been using the word agility versus, agile, right? Because a lot of people are going to think agile, they're going to think, time boxed approaches, like, we're using sprints. And at least in my experience, the majority of the organizations, especially the larger organizations, they use more hybrid than anything, right? I mean, rarely are you going to see like every single area and every single team that is using, again, something like a time boxed approach where they rarely, if ever, have carryover work. I mean, it's much more of a hybrid situation from a way of working in most organizations anyway.
Yeah. And before we make this along, and I'm conscious of this, but I can't help myself. There's so much to talk about with this. But where do we see value stream management work extremely well? It's in organizations that are adopting systems like Kanban, right? It's much clearer what the flow of work actually looks like and how work passes from stage to stage, which is not a traditional, agile practice. Even though it's been, it's now intertwined and it's very difficult to tease them apart. But I wouldn't consider that to be identical or part of traditional agile. So, I would consider this busted.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all four myths have been busted. If you don't agree, if you're watching this live, or you're watching our replay, definitely post a comment. If you've got some other myths that you would like us to try and work through, leave a comment as well. I like the myths, so I think even though there might not be other blog posts about this, maybe we can solicit a few more myths or come up with some of the ones that we see at organizations. And we'll do a flow chart part 2 on this, and do some other myth busting.
I love it. I found when I was looking this up, I was like, "What's the original source?" And I found many more that were defined by Plutoro a while ago. So we could hit that one at some point.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you on the next flow short.
Thanks, folks. Thanks, Joshua.